So we are moving on to lesson 13, and this is our first session on subtracting fractions. We've gotten a little practice with it so far, but this is a nice bridge from the adding subtractions lesson we did before. So let's start with a warm up and talk about some equivalent fractions here. Um, Equivalent fractions, again, are what we basically are doing when we get a common denominator and change one of the fractions in our work. So for example, we're not using fraction tiles for this. We're just going to do this really simple. Um, for this, I felt we could just do this. So any fraction you have, if you multiply the top and bottom numbers, um, let's for this case, we'll do times 2. This is going to create fractions like 6/8. And if you take this base fraction and let's go with 3, that will give me 9/12. And we could do it for, gosh, anything. Let's try 5. This could give us 15/20. All of these fractions here, all of these are equivalent. They're equal. Their value is exactly the same. But what is really important is these denominators when we're working with other fractions and mixed numbers is making sure those are the same. Then we can move on and do what we need to do as far as the work goes. All right. So in your books, if you turn to page 249, we'll get started here with this first question here. Paul has a 3/4 inch bolt, long bolt. He buys a bolt that's 1/8 inch longer and a bolt that is 1/8 inch shorter. So right away, we can see that we are dealing with denominators of 4 and 8. And it wants to know what are the lengths of the two bolts he buys. So we have to make a choice here. We're going to need, we need to find a common denominator first of all. But for this, I'm going to use what we learned in the warm-up, and I'm going to take this 3/4 and I want to change this to 8ths. And I know I can do that by multiplying by 2, and that gives me 6/8. So right now we know even though our 3/4 bolt is sold that way, technically it's also considered a 6/8 bolt. So let's split the workspace here. If we want to find a bolt that is 1/8 larger, we set it up like this. If we want to find a bolt that is 1/8 smaller, we set up like this. And again, keep your denominators and then subtract your numerators. So one bolt is going to be 7/8 inch and the other one is going to be 5/8 inch. So that's kind of a real life problem too. If you're building things or anything like that requires assembly, you're going to be using fractions to kind of do that. So this is one of those tips that you might actually use as an adult. All right, let's turn the page. So explain how to find the lengths of the two bolts that Paul buys. The first thing we did was you'll find a common denominator. Extend that a little bit. We did that by making the equivalent fraction of 3/4 into 6/8. And the next step is then you can add and subtract 1/8. And that gave us our final answers of 5/8 and 7/8. So it's pretty simple with that. What's also simple is what we're doing next. This was what we did in our warm-up the other day, actually. So just like adding fractions, you can find a common denominator to subtract fractions with unlike denominators, such as 3/4 and 1/3. Our 4 is one denominator and our 3 is the other. Write the first 4 multiples of each denominator, then circle the common multiple to find a common denominator. So we've got 4, 8, 12, and 16. For 3, we've got 3, 6, 9, and 12. And just like before, you check to see which number is the same for both, and that's going to be our 12. That'll be our common denominator. Part B, complete these models and equations to show how the equivalent fractions for 3/4 and 1/3 using the common multiple as the common denominator. Now these little squares here, these are all twelfths. That's why there's 12 of these boxes here. So what they're trying to show you is we have 3/4 here, and this, we want to basically fill these in, showing how you can do this visually and not mathematically, and then you count up your boxes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 3/4 is equal to 9/12, just like that. Same deal for here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, and that 1/3 is equal to 4/12. Let's bring these two down. 9/12 and 4/12, and 9 minus 4 is 5. 5/12 is our answer. Pretty simple. Models are helpful. Your IXL today will have models to again help support your answer, so you can learn it visually as well as mathematically. And lastly, how subtracting fractions like adding fractions. Simple as this. The denominators have to be the same. And it's simple as that. You got it. All right. For your homework, for those that are home, and classwork for kids that are here, it's going to be L9, subtraction fractions with unlike denominators using models. Obviously, you just have to go to 70%, hit that bronze medal, and you can go to 100% for a house point. All right, contact me if you have any questions.